What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy, Jewfy Talks, and we back with another one today. So today we will be reacting and looking over this clip from Joe Rogan's podcast, and the video is titled "Joe Rogan is shocked to learn about Thomas Sowell's wisdom." Now, this video comes from Thomas Sowell TV. A lot of great clips, a lot of educational, a lot of informal stuff on that channel. I subscribe. You know, I see it as a large bank of stuff to react to. So I will definitely be reacting to more stuff from this channel. I'm a big fan of Joe Rogan. I've been watching UFC since I was a kid, so that was my introduction to him. Oh, and Fear Factor, of course. You know, Joe Rogan is a great guy, and he's here with I can't remember, what is this guy's name? His name is Hunter Matz. So yeah, without further ado, without too much talking, let's get into the video. But before I start it, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, just for educational purposes. Now, let's get into the video, ladies and gentlemen.
You know Thomas Sowell?
I know that name. Why do I know that name?
Thomas Sowell is a big, famous conservative. He's at Stanford. He's at the Hoover Institute, I think. Anyway, so, you know, within this, I mean, first, just to set all this up, we should set up briefly, how does culture work, right? And the way culture works is that it, like genetic evolution, it works based on blind copying. So what ends up happening is that you are in awe of people, right? You look up to people, and so you blindly copy the things they do. And specifically, you start by blindly copying from the outside, and then you work in. Thomas Sowell is a black guy, right? Okay. And Thomas Sowell has, for years and years and years, been trying to fight racism. But he's been trying to fight racism by having a conversation about culture. Right? And the fact that there are essentially two different sort of, you know, we're speaking broadly here, right? But this is for the purposes of communication. We're going to tell a simple story to start off with, right? So broadly speaking, he puts two different cultures of people with dark skin next to each other. And one culture is these people from the West Indies. And one culture is this group of people who grew up in the South with slavery and all that sort of stuff. Now, what one group, the West Indies group, does really well. So a lot of the successful black people like Colin Powell, are originally from that cultural heritage. The other group is the group...
And the West Indies, if I'm not mistaken, is that in Africa? Sorry, if I'm wrong, correct me, but...
that you find in ghettos and African-American communities and all that sort of stuff. They don't do well, right? They don't get good education.
So based off his example so far, it sounds like he's comparing Africans who come from Africa, migrate here, to black people, American black people who you know, their ancestors have been here for at least, you know, a generation or two.
Education, they, you know, shoot each other. There are all these sorts of things. And the reason why Sowell has been telling this story is because he's been trying to say, you know, when liberals look at the people in ghettos, they say, racism. That's why they're not succeeding. And Sowell is saying, no, it's not. Because if you look at this group from the West Indies, they also came from the experience of slavery. There was slavery in the West Indies. They are also black, so they also face racism, and yet they do well. So it has to be something else. And that other thing is the fact that these black people who are in the South, there's always been a big question, were black people robbed of their culture? Or did they preserve their authentic African culture? And what Sowell is saying is that they were robbed of their culture, and so they picked up the culture of the people around them, and the people around them were rednecks. And if you look at the white redneck culture... and
you see, that's interesting, because nobody would think, especially no black people would think that they picked up their culture, or the ancestors before them picked up their culture from white people. No, like, if you could ask any black person that, they would not guess it. I'm willing to bet.
In the black redneck culture, they have a lot of the same values. They don't particularly respect education. They love Jesus. They use violence in their conflicts, and they, you know, there's just, you know, a lot of the same values and a lot of the same outcomes. And even Ebonics, which is, you know, black English, is actually all from the west of England. So it's actually this, it's from the west of England.
See, now that's crazy. That's something, again, like something that I don't think most people know. Unless you've done research on this topic, most people would not know that Ebonics comes from the west of England.
So, for example, if you go to places like Cornwall, there used to be these amazing ads on British TV, right, for this Devon custard or whatever, and they would always say, Devon knows how they make it so creamy, and they all talk like this, right? And so it doesn't sound like Black English, but they do say things like, I be doing that, and we be doing this, and you be doing that, and they be doing that. And so there's that use of that copula be, right, where it's
Yeah, that's definitely how black people talk. And, it's not even just black people. Like, interestingly enough, the way he's talking about culture rubbing off on people, it's not even just how black people talk. Like I said, I grew up with Mexicans. Oh, I mentioned this before, but I went to a high school predominantly black and Mexican, predominantly black and Hispanic. Really, the only difference in the way that the Mexicans and the black people communicated was that Mexicans also spoke Spanish, but as far as like the slang goes and the Ebonics, we spoke exactly the same. We all knew exactly what we were talking about. When a black person was talking to a Mexican person at school, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I be doing this, and I'm finna go do that real quick," and blah 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 blah. Like that use of slang, that use of Ebonics, it's the same. So I think the way the story happened, the way it happened is black people learned it from white people. Ebonics came from the west of England. Black people learned it from the white rednecks, and I think that has kind of just trickled down onto anybody else, like any other type of race that grows up around them. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, the Hispanic kids that went to my school, they ended up sounding just like the black kids. So you know what I'm saying? Like that, the culture is very powerful, very prevalent, and can have a huge impact on everything, the way you talk, what you eat, etc. But let's continue.
Instead of saying I am, you are, he is, she is, they are, they just say I be, you be, we be, they be, which is the classic feature of Black English, African American vernacular English. Right. Now, the point is that
Mind blower.
Now, let's imagine that. How do you think that Thomas Sowell has been received by liberal America? Not well.
Not well.
Not well.
Not well. But the thing about Thomas Sowell is he's not a Donald Trump like figure. He doesn't come off very arrogant, or he's not flashy. He's a very low key dude. Like I don't like any criticism about him, any negative criticism about Thomas Sowell. I don't understand where it would come from. It wouldn't make any sense to me, because he stays out of the way. He's very smart, very intelligent, and yeah, he doesn't really bother too many people. So the fact that liberals haven't received him well is one thing, but I mean, at the same time, I don't think you can really say much about him. You can't really say much about his character, because he doesn't have any scandals. But let's keep going.
So, for example, Sowell has a book called Black Rednecks, White Liberals. Okay? And his whole point is that, if you actually, and, again, like Sowell is, he researches the shit out of this stuff. He really does his work. Now, if you look at the experience of African Americans after slavery, they start to make real progress, right? And a large part of the reason why they make progress is because you start to get a lot of people from New England, either, black people from New England or white people from New England, who come down and sort of reshape the culture. They create these schools, and they're teaching those New England values, right? It's those Puritan values of hard work, tenacity, all of that sort of stuff. And so there's all this progress. And you have people like Booker T. Washington. And Booker T. Washington was an actual slave. And then after he got his freedom, he got to go work in a salt mine, which is literally the worst job ever. And in Booker T. Washington's Up From Slavery, he tells this great story about seeing a schoolhouse, right? And that, he thought that going into a...
Sorry to pause, but that's a book I need to get. I need to get Booker T. Washington's book.
Schoolhouse was about as close to heaven on earth as you could get.
Whoa.
Like, this is a dude who wanted an education really, really badly. And that's a lot of what you find in the, early black experience in, the post-slavery period. And in fact, blacks, before sort of World War II actually had higher rates of marriage than whites. All of these sorts of things that, are now supposedly a problem. And then there's this turnaround, right? The black experience starts to go south, right? It starts to get worse.
And what year is this around?
This is post-World War II, right? So
post-slave.
Okay, and I think Joe Rogan was about to get into it right now, but just, that's very important what he said. Just listen to what he said. I'm going to run it back. So he's saying that post-slavery, like the year or so after, like right after post-slavery, black people were hungry to provide for their families. They were getting married. They were getting into the workforce, doing their own thing, really, really just doing their own thing and doing well. You started to see a rebound post-slavery. You started to see a rebound, an increase in just black prosperity here in America. And now he's saying that post-World War II, which would be World War II ended in the 1940s, 50s. Sorry if I'm wrong, but around that time, you started to notice a decline in all of those, a decline from all those increases we were seeing. So let's get into the reasons why really quick, if he explains.
Slavery. Black people experience a rebounding.
They're starting to make some progress. There's ambition.
Progress.
Yeah. And I mean, if in terms of books to read, like, because a large part of what I'm trying to do in general is really let's move to the place of all people are created equal. Like, let's remove all these stupid distinctions, right, and really live that principle. And the problem is that in order to really live that principle, you need a new narrative that beats slavery. So, it's not, if you go and talk to racists, you can't just say racism is bad. Like, that doesn't destroy racism. Right? What destroys racism is when you make sense of the things that they know, right? They see, people who are violent in the ghettos, or they see crime, or they see a lack of education, or they see that Africa is poor. And you're able to tell a better story that makes sense of the things that they know, but also comes out with the conclusion, oh, we actually all have the same potential.
I like that. I like that a lot. I wish him the best on his mission. God bless him, seriously.
So, do you know Thomas Sowell?
But,
I know that name. Why do I know that name?
Thomas Sowell is a big...
Culture is a hard thing to rewire in people. It's a hard thing to rewire in people. Like I've mentioned on other videos before, if you black, you are literally expected to vote for the Democratic Party. I know it's changing a bit now, but when I was growing up, that's just what it was. You know what I'm saying? If you're a black conservative, you are a unicorn. There are not many people in the black community, and when I say the black community, there are not many black people who mirror your views with pride. With pride is important because some of them might mirror your views, but not with pride. So, yeah, culture is a tough one. It's very tough to change. When you've been used to doing the same thing for so long, it's really just a conditioning that we have to uncondition ourselves to be like this. That's why I support everybody, all the black conservatives, so long as they're true in their beliefs and not grifting and they really mean what they say and they really believe what they believe in. I support black conservatives because, I am one myself. And, yeah, who else going to change the culture? It got to be us, right? Just conservatives in general. But this video is getting a little bit long. That was nice. It was educational. I'm sure somebody learned something that they didn't know before. So, yeah, that was good. That's all I got for today, you guys. So until next time, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. We out of here. Peace.